And this is about little article I wrote about perceiving. As we know, when it comes to the is, and indeed all the life levels, it's a matter of recognition and perceiving. So here we are on the physical level. We have our physical senses. So we have the means by which to perceive what is, for our literal interpretation, level 1. On each of the other life levels, there are the vehicles that correspond to them. It follows then that each vehicle will have its own particular means by which to perceive the life level it is in. The senses of the physical vehicle are absent beyond the physical, and so from the astral level to the causal, mental, etheric, and into the real universe it becomes a perceiving. If one were to attempt to perceive a life level in the manner one would on a level different from it, one would see absolutely nothing. This then explains why a proportion of the real side dream experiences will be the guides taking the new students throughout creation and ultimately into the real universes, for the purposes of developing the ability to perceive each of these life levels. It's very conceivable at first that the guides will initially take an individual to the causal level, say, and they may be unable to see a thing. An adjustment period most likely then is afforded. I can imagine the individual in darkness, unable to perceive the level. Then they adapt and find their causal eyes, as it were, and the causal level is revealed to them. I remember reading in Dwayne's new books how he had to slowly adjust and make a subtle shift when entering the real universes. He had to find his perception, and it came to him, for he would have been well practised in the art of being throughout creation and the real universes. This is indeed why a guide could take an individual and place them in the real universes. But unless said individual has practiced the perceiving of the true light reality, they will see nothing, so it would be rather pointless. In fact, with any life level, if an individual hasn't made the connection to the is and began exploring and learning to perceive each creational life level, then they will be unable to see a thing in any of them, apart from, say, the astral. But even then it can be surmised. There is no guarantee with even perceiving the astral. Picture an individual who is so fixated on their personal little life, and the physical level is all they focus on and consider, to the extent they may rigidly decide that nothing beyond the rock world they are on exists. Then that individual passes over. So rigid is their contention of nothing existing beyond the physical, it's possible then they are unable to see a thing on the astral. They will attempt to see it with their physical eyes. They no longer have their physical body, but so attached are they and so unversed in the practice of perception beyond the physical level, they will be unfamiliar with the subtle shifts in perception required to see beyond it. They would be effectively blind on the astral. They would be stumbling around in a mist, bumping into individuals and such, and depending on the extent of their self-imposed perceptual inadequacy, they may not even be aware of other people there or the fact they are bumping into them. I can imagine naughty individuals attaching astral kick-me signs to the oblivious individuals' backs. And yes, what we decide rigidly can be so. Duane told a harrowing tale of how individuals who believe adamantly that when they die they will be 6 feet under in a grave and rot for eternity, well, that is where they were, trapped in a box and within a rotting corpse until they decide otherwise. Here's a real side dream Peter, my father, shared, where a blind girl had dreams. And so she was on life levels beyond the physical, but she was blind in her dreams too. On the surface very peculiar. Her physical eyes are only designed to perceive the physical life level. So beyond the physical, she wouldn't require the mechanics of the physical body to perceive. Blindness should not affect her then in her dreams. But like the example of the individual fixated so strongly on the physical, it's possible the blind woman was very attached to her blindness and identified strongly with it. So in the dream arena beyond the physical, she was adamant she was blind still, and could not bring her perceptual ability beyond the physical to bear. So most people at least will be able to perceive the level they will undoubtedly enter when they pass over the astral. But focus too would play a role. If a person is very unfocused and has considered nothing beyond the physical, and then suddenly the physical is gone, it's possible their experience in even the astral may be sketchy at best. They may swim in and out of the perception of it. Sure, they may adapt over time, but it could certainly be rather a surreal, floaty, and dreamlike experience for them, drifting through the duration of time they remain on the astral. Then, naturally, boredom sets in. They didn't take the time to recognize much beyond the physical, and they are even less likely to do so in a place that seems so dreamlike, surreal, and to them unreal. Duane spoke about in his new books how he would see trains of individuals on the way to collecting their new bodies that they had created for themselves based on their degree of awareness and cause and effect, and how they seemed so vacant and distant and staring into the distance and unfocused. No wonder they drift back into a new unconscious lifetime. They can't expand further with their awareness. They have no knowledge of the process or how any of it works. They don't know where they are, where to go, or what to do, and may struggle to even perceive and focus on the place they now find themselves in. So they go back to what they know, what they are familiar with. Unable to expand into their awareness further, they retract, diminish, and follow the familiar tugs of attachments and agreements that anchor them and pull them back to the rock worlds, where they can be asleep again in the passing dream, with no memory of this rather hazy, for them anyway, astral place, and immerse themselves once more in a created, unconscious, and controlled life. That is why all individuals who begin with the is, because that is every individual's starting place, must then go to the physical and start her position as something like an amoeba or whatever. Go through then the various positions and animal forms to assume eventually a more humanoid, reptilian, or whatever form. Again, before beginning this process, an individual is completely aware, for you cannot be with the is if you are not. But they are unable to recognize it, to perceive it. That is why they must do this very long process of millions of lifetimes to eventually take on a form and position where free will kicks in, and now they are potentially poised to begin to recognize where they are and gather their causal level database of experiences which serve as comparisons, to then be chosen by the guides when they are ready and their karmic cause and effect debt isn't too vast to be unmanageable, and begin to be shown all the life levels, the real universes, to recognize and learn to perceive them all, and eventually return back to where they began, the is. For everyone is already there, but they can't recognize the fact. The awareness is required, coupled with the experience of learning to perceive these life levels. For up until the point an individual is granted free will, that individual is fully aware, but unable to recognize the fact that they are. So free will is essential as part of this process, but can also generally ensure we spend millions of lifetimes using it to create things, chase ideas and thrills that pertain to creation only. And so there we stay until we recognize our true, real intent, make the real connection, and begin the process of becoming more aware. To finish on this, when I used to do astral projections before I came to find the new presentation, I would experience something akin to what the blind lady would when she was dreaming. I would leave my body. When doing my astral projections, I am now no longer in my physical body, so I am on the astral level at least. Generally, that is where an astral or outer body projector would find themselves. So having left my body, I can still see the house and the street, just as I left it on the physical. My perception of the astral hadn't kicked in yet. I was still trying to see through my physical eyes, and so effectively, as I still had a physical body, I was doing just that. I would suggest. I was on the astral, but seeing the physical. I could walk through the walls, though, like a ghost, because obviously I had no physical body now, so I was not constrained by the physicality of the house. But even that took me time initially to determine. I thought I was as equally restricted as on the physical, but then, possibly through intuitive or real self-input, I started pushing my hand through the very walls and found I could do this. This, again, would suggest that unaware people passing over, if they rigidly consider themselves to be as limited as they were on the physical, they would restrict themselves accordingly, and not be delighting in the flying and other movement by thought manipulation of the astral that most aware individuals would be demonstrating. Then after a while my astral perception would kick in, and the house would naturally fade away, and I'd be in all sorts of exotic lands, places, and interacting with all manner of colourful and intriguing, some nicer than others, creatures and folks. But even after all my practices with astral projection, always I began at the place I initially projected from, then a subtle shift, as I adapt to perceiving the astral, and off I go exploring. So you can see, astral projections of this kind do provide a valid experience, and the opportunity to practice perceiving, at least, the astral, but that's generally as far as it can go. You tend not go beyond the astral. And a cautionary note. People who proclaim the harmless nature of astral projections are in fact misleading you. You can draw the unwanted attention of reptilians and all kinds of demonic creatures and entities, and they will attach to you and follow you back. And you can open portals through this practice that they utilize to invade your home and cause all kinds of mischief and mayhem. And yes, they can capture you on the astral too. They love naive individuals who project into the astral without the slightest inkling as to who or what is out there. I can say personally that I have been attacked through my out-of-body excursions, and creatures have attempted to seize and imprison me. Just like that series of movies Insidious, where the little boy, who was adept at astral projection, was imprisoned on the astral by a demonic character and had to be rescued by another equally as adept traveller to the place she called the Over, but which would have been the astral. Nowadays I don't pursue such practices. They can be experiences and beneficial, but are limited to the astral predominantly, and with the added risk elements I have outlined. You also can have your cord that extends from the body you've projected from severed, then you're not getting back. The real experiences that the guides provide are far more expansive in the awareness expanding potential they afford, and the opportunity to explore more life levels than just the astral, and the opportunity to practice the ability to perceive them all. The guides, in fact, will put a stop to the more limited and riskier astral projections too, for the very reasons just revealed. The guides, the real you, and life knows what's best for you, but if you persist and ignore these gems of unparalleled wisdom, you are simply treading water and delaying your process. So even if you don't remember all your dreams, and who does, rest assured, you are being taken all over creations, all the life levels and the real universes, and you are gaining the experience to recognize and perceive them. That's assuming your real tent is established, and you are focused on your real awareness and making the connection to it and the ears with the new you song. And so, when we all do pass over, if and when that occurs, it will, I think, be pleasantly surprising as to the recognition we have, compared to those who didn't take the time to recognize and connect with their real awareness. On a quick final additional note, you hear about those alien abductions that occur where the witnesses say they are pulled through what seems to be a physical ceiling in their homes. It seems then that would follow along the lines of an astral alien abduction. I suggest the majority of abductions occur on the astral, rather than great clanky spaceships that would be very apparent on the physical and give the game away. And that's why many don't remember the abductions. People very focused on the physical and people who are unaware would be equally as unaware of being abducted on the astral. Sure, they might get a few snippets of imagery, a few pieces of memory slipping through, and just like dreams, they disregard and don't pay attention to them. This enables abductions of an astral nature to go largely unrealized. So when you are, say, being pulled through a solid ceiling, evidently you are now on the astral, but not perceiving this life level, still perceiving the physical through your physical eyes, like in my astral projection experiences where I could still see the house. And then your perceptions may adjust, and suddenly all those little grey aliens appear and their spaceship. but not necessarily. It always depends on your awareness and your ability to perceive the life levels. And then to the individuals who were unable to perceive the aliens and their spaceship, it may just seem to them to be a very frightful sort of a dream, with some vague notion of being dragged somewhere, assuming people can even remember that. Maybe they had just left with the impression of a nightmare. I'm sure they do have mind-blanking technology, but for me, with the mass of humanity being very unaware of the astral and the other life levels and unable to recognize and perceive them, this is a far better means to abduct individuals, as it goes under the radar of the vast majority. The awareness astral perceiving radar. And I thank you all for listening to my radio show. It went on a little longer than I anticipated, but nevertheless, I hope it was enjoyable and at least thought-provoking. So I shall finish with the New You song. New You. And so, from the little island of the UK, I bid you all farewell, and I look forward to speaking to you next time.